Hare Krishna devotees, Dandavat Pranam. Welcome to Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. So we are very fortunate to have the association of His Grace Sri Balaji Prabhu, who will be sharing the nectar from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 6, chapter number 1, sloka number 55. Prabhuji, over to you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tado Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayasha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Welcome all to the Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Today's shloka is from Canto 6, as Prabhuji said, Canto 6, Chapter 1, Text 55. Esha Prakriti Sangena Purushasya Viparyayaha Asitsa Evana Chirat Isha Sanghat Viliyate. Word to word translation. Esha, this Prakriti Sangena, because of association with the material nature, Purushasya, of the living entity, Viparyayaha, a situation of forgetfulness or an awkward position, Asit, came to be, Saha, that position, Eva, indeed, na, not, Chirat, taking a long time, Isha Sanghat, from the association of Supreme Lord, of the Supreme Lord, Viliyate is vanquished. Translation purport by His Divine Grace Abhay Charana Arvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The translation: since the living entity is associated with material nature, he is in an awkward position. But if in the human form of life, he is taught how to associate with the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotee, this position can be overcome. Purport: the word Prakriti means material nature, and Purusha may also refer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If one wants to continue his association with Prakriti, the female energy of Krishna, and be separated from Krishna by the illusion that he is able to enjoy Prakriti, he must continue in his conditional life. If he changes his consciousness, however, and associates with the Supreme Original Person, Purusham Shashvatam, or with his associates, he can get out of the entanglement of material nature. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 4.9, Janma Karma Chame Divyam Evam Yo Vedi Tattvataha. One must simply understand the Supreme Person Krishna in terms of his form, name, activities, and pastimes. This will keep one always in the association of Krishna. Tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mamiti so Arjuna. Thus, after giving up his gross material body, one accepts not another gross body, but a spiritual body in which to return home back to Godhead. Thus, one ends the tribulation caused by his association with the material energy. In summary, the living entity is an eternal servant of God, but he comes to the material world and is bound by material conditions because of his desire to lord it over matter. Liberation means giving up this false consciousness and reviving one's original service to the Lord. This return to one's original life is called mukti, as confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam, mukti hitvayanta yatha rupam swarupena vyavastitihi. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurumritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Dekshatarine. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Dushe Nama. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Shri Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Shri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam karoti vachalam pangulangayati girim yatkripa tamam mande Shri Guru Deenatharana Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hare Krishna. Welcome all again. So we are reading from Canto 6, Chapter 1, Text 55. Just to give a background, so till now, in this particular section, I'm just talking about chapters, Canto 6, Chapter 1, Section 40 to 55. That's verse number 40 to 55. Basically, Yamadutas are now replying to those questions which Vishnu Dutas have asked. Now, all through this shloka from 40 to 55, they're only talking about how the jivas get entrapped. Now, what better? Now, we all have heard about this in our early device sessions. We used to hear about pramana, that is pratyaksha pramana, anumana pramana, and there was the third one which was very important, was a shabda pramana. Now, here in this particular section, we are hearing from the Yamudutas who are, who deal with this particular situation with the jivas on a day-to-day basis, on a moment-to-moment basis, probably. And here, Yamadutas, who are sort of authorities in this particular subject matter, they are explaining to us. And what more do we want as a, as a confirmation that this material world is really dukhalem ashashvatam, and that only our only endeavor should be to take shelter of the Lord and his devotees. So Yamadutas are explaining in this whole section how the jivas get entrapped. For example, in text 49, they talk about, forgetfulness of past or future birth. So the living entity, they're talking about the jiva, the living entities. They forget about the past or the future birth. Text 50 talks about how this jivas enjoys with the 16 elements. That is the 5 knowledge senses, 5 karmendriyas, action senses, 5 sense objects, and the mind, which is the 16th element. Now, together they enjoy, what do they enjoy? The 3 kinds of situations. They say happiness, distressful, and both mixed together. That is in text 50. Text 51 is perpetual transmigration, which means perpetual means a long continued life. And life of what? Transmigration, living the same birth, death of cycle, the cycle of birth and death. Text 52, very beautifully, they give an analogy of how the jivas are in a situation similar to a silk worm, which itself entraps it in its own cocoon. Okay, so they have explained in this, using this analogy, they're explaining how the jivas are getting entrapped based their own material desires, based on desires, basically. Text 53. They are forced to act and can never be unengaged. Now, this is what happens. You're so bound by the material nature, they're forced to act because of that, and they never get unengaged. They never get, released from their bondage. And 54, they speak about jiva's karmas, their past actions and the reactions. Okay. And this text, this particular verse, this text 55, after all this description of this precarious situation that a material, the jiva is in this material world, they give a solution. The Yamadutas are giving a solution here. Okay, so they say, if you see the shloka, beautiful shloka, they say, Esha Prakriti Sangena Purushasya Viparyayaha. So they are bound by this. They are put in a very awkward situation. Then they say, Asitsa Evanachira, Isha Sangat Viliyate. So Isha means the Lord. Do the Sangat, do the association, get associated with the Supreme Lord. By this, what happens is their precarious position is vanquish. So, as I was saying, what more Shabda Pramana do we want? And from the authorities themselves, from the Yamadutas themselves, what more do we want that, by Isha Sangha, we can vanquish this particular position. So, for today's discussion, I was looking at the translation where Prabhupada translates this beautiful shloka. He says, and then basically in in chapter Canto 1, chapter 6, text 34, there is also similar kind of a discussion where Vyasadeva, when he wrote all the Puranas, everything he wrote, but then still he was in a very despondent situation. Narad Muni comes to him, seeing his despondent situation, he asks, so he says, this is what happened. The Narad Muni, in the conclusion, 1:6:34, he gives a very beautiful shloka. This is Etadya Achurchitanam Matra Sparshachaya Muhu Bhava Sindhu Plavadrishto Haricharya Anuvarnanam. So Narad Muni very beautifully concludes his whole discussion with Vyasadeva, again an authority who actually saw the material life, saw how the jiva is entrapped in the material life, and then he wrote Srimad Bhagavatam, the essence of all the Puranas. So Narad Muni is telling to Vyasadeva that Etadya Atur Chittanam, our chitta is always atur, every time in anxiety. Why? Etadyaturchitanam matra sparshachamhu, by when the senses are connected, the senses are always connected to the sense objects. Because of that, we are always etadya aturchitan. The chitta is always in anxiety. Then he says, but there is a solution, there is a way out. How? He says, Bhava Sindhu Plavadrishto. There is a boat which can pull you out from this space of nations, from this precarious position, doing what? Hari Charya Anu Varnanam. Hari is the Lord. Charya. Charya means activities. We call Dinacharya. We have heard this word Dinacharya. He says, we have to, what we have to do? Hari Charya, that is Hari's activities. What we have to do? Anu Varnanam. So Hari Charya Anu Varnanam. We have to repeatedly glorify, repeatedly read, repeatedly remember the activities of none other than Hari. Same message. The Srimad Bhagavatam is so beautiful, we all know somebody told, one devotee was telling Srila Prabhupada, one person was telling that Aapka Swami, your Swami has written, put bhakti everywhere. Any place you open, everywhere there is bhakti. Why it is like that? Because Srila Prabhupada says, see, we do not know whether anybody can read the entire Srimad Bhagavatam at one go. But anywhere, whichever shloka you pick up, it is bhakti. So that is why I've added bhakti everywhere. And what more than Vyasadeva himself has put, Vyasadeva himself has ensured that, everywhere there is remembrance of the Lord. And that is the only solution that is proposed, basically. And then it's up to the jiva to take care of that and ensure that, he does Hari Charya Anukaranam. In the same shloka, the last line of the shloka is same. Isha Sangha Viliyate. Okay. And so in this particular section, in this translation, there are three, four beautiful points that Prabhupada translates this particular shloka. He says, since the living entity is associated with material nature, he is in an awkward position. So that's the first thing which Prabhupada says. Because the living entity is associated with the material nature, the living entity is in an awkward position. And not a good position, basically. First point. Second, Prabhupada writes in the translation, but if in the human form of life he is taught how to associate with the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotees. So the second point is, the human form of life, the entity has to be taught. The second point. Third, what he has to be taught? How to associate with the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotees. That's third point. Fourth beautiful point, Prabhupada writes in the translation, by doing all this thing, this position of the entity can be overcome, can be viliyate. vanquish. So we'll just quickly touch upon this particular key aspects that Prabhupada has mentioned as in the translation. So the first point which I said was association with material nature. Now we all know, we have heard also in that, this precarious position, this awkward position is only because the living entity wants to enjoy on his own. Why that happens is because, see, originally the living entity is pure, Satchitananda Vigraha. But because and by because the entity wanted to enjoy separately, just due to the envious nature, he comes. Krishna has arranged this particular material world so that you go and enjoy. But while you're enjoying, you please try to see if you can remember me. Okay, so but he's given this all. He has provided all the facilities, and these facilities are provided by the three modes of material nature. He kind of gets associated with the three modes of material nature without knowing, and by this association, he develops this unwanted desires and habits, which become his cause for repeated birth and cycle. But the living entity does not know. Though he might know, somewhere somebody tells him that, reminds him, and most important, the Lord himself, sitting as a Paramatma, tries to remind him. But the living entity, out of envious nature, associates with the three modes of material nature, and what happens is develops unwanted desires and habits, and because of this, the repeated birth and cycle happens. Now, what better an example that we can give is Ajamil only. He was he was raised and brought up in a very wonderful Brahmana family, well trained and cultured. Yet, due to just one association, just by the glance, just by seeing that particular incident, he fell down. And how much he fell down, such a very precarious position he went to but yeah, he fell down. Now, in Bhagavad Gita also, Krishna says, this is in chapter 13, text 22. Krishna basically is explaining here what happens when we get connected via the material modes and get entangled. So Krishna says, Purusha prakritisto hi bhungte prakriti jangunan karanam guna sangosya. What happens? Because karanam, the reason why the entities getting entrapped is because of the guna sangasya. Now, what happens because of that is sat asat yoni janmasu. So, because of this connection, so it might for us sometimes it might feel that this is repetition. Everywhere it is always told that it is, or for that matter, is it kind of a pessimistic kind of approach that we have? But no, repetition of these kind of messages. I was hearing to one of my counsel. He says he heard from one of the sannyasis that repetition is a sign of love. And why are we repeating? Why are we repeating this? Is because so that we can get connected to the Lord. The intention is that we get connected to the Lord. So that is why the repetition. So repetition is sign of love. Repetition is also showing loyalty to the parampara. Our acharyas, our parampara have always kept on repeating the same message, or beating continuously that, you have to look back, you have to look to Lord, you have to associate with devotees. So, but that repetition actually, when we do that, when we hear that repetitively, it is actually a sign of loyalty to the parampara, and also it is a sign of love. So sometimes we might feel like, what is this? Why are we repeating the same message? Now, in this particular Bhagavad Gita Shloka 13.22, Krishna says, Sat Asat Yoni Janmashu. So what happens because of this associating with this material nature, it develops undesired desires and habits, and because of that, it gets into good or the same, different good or evil, various species, it gets into the repeated cycle of birth and death. Okay. Srila Prabhupada, in this particular purport, he just beautifully writes. I'll just read out that. It's very beautiful and self-explanatory. Prabhupada writes in that purport, due to his desire, his in the sense, the jivas, the living entity's desire to lord it over material nature, he's put into such undesirable circumstances. Now, what happens? Under the influence of material desire, the entity is born sometimes as a demigod, sometimes as a man, sometimes as a beast, as a bird, as a worm, as an aquatic fish, as a saintly man, as a bug. And then Prabhupada writes, this is going on. And then Prabhupada writes after that, and in all cases, the living entity thinks himself to be the master of his circumstances, yet he is under the influence of material nature. Though he is under the influence of material nature, the living entity somehow he considers himself to the master of his circumstances and tries to rectify his situation. Now, to further add, again, again, repetition. This is actually in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 5, text number 4. This particular section is where Lord Rishabdev is instructing his 100 sons on the beautiful shloka, that 4 shlokas which are there. If you can just read the translation or read the shlokas, translate the Prabhupada, beautiful shloka, we can help, it can help us remind our precarious position also, and how the jivas get entrapped. So I was referring to especially to text number 4. Okay, but that 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 verses before that, Rishabdev is actually instructing his 100 sons the importance of devotional service or Krishna consciousness. He describes how the body that we receive is a cause of our miseries. Then he says in this particular 4th verse, he says, therefore, it is not befitting an intelligent man to involve again in the activities of sense gratification and again perpetually get material bodies. And Srila Prabhupada, to further enhance or amplify this particular message, says in the purport how, and Prabhupada was so intelligent that he understood what are those 4 things that a devotee, a sadhaka, has to avoid. Those are the 4 regulative principles, which are not having, refraining oneself from illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling. Srila Prabhupada again mentions in this purport, he says how the 4 sinful activities of illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling are the means of getting another material body, which is again full of miseries. Now, what is the use of doing that? So Prabhupada is kind of hammering this particular point through to us, that we should understand what kind of a situation we are in and how we can get out of it. So the problem is not the soul, the problem is not the living entity, but its association. Okay, and then the second point. This was the first point. The second point was, in this human form of life, only the living entity can be taught. Krishna in 15.15, that is chapter 15, text 15, it's a very famous shloka, everybody knows. Sarvasya chaham ridhi sannivishto matta smritir jnanam apohanam cha. Then he says, Vedaisha sarver aham ema vedyo vedant krit veda videcham. So he says, I reside in every entity and give them intelligence, remembrance, and forgetfulness. But the most important point is, you read whatever Vedas, you read whatever scriptures. The most important thing is to know that I am the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So all the inference, the essence of the scriptures is that I am the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Krishna has to be understood. So in Shukadeva Goswami also, in this canto in chapter first itself, in text number 11, he says the real atonement, and that basically Shukadeva Goswami is telling to Parikshit Maharaj, real atonement means awakening knowledge. So when Prabhupada writes that in the human form of life, the living entity can be taught, I mean, any other living entity, whether it is a dog or a cat, can be taught. A monkey is taught, to jump. When he sees the stick, he knows he has to jump, do some somersault and all those things, jump from here or get some, whoever is giving money, go and collect the money. So other living entities can be taught, but we have a difference, right? We have human life in this is unique because we can be taught how to discriminate. Discrimination can be taught to that particular, another dog or whatever, that this is wrong, don't eat this, this is wrong, this is bad. I don't know How many of you heard there is a person named Pablo? There is a very beautiful experiment that he had done. If you get some time, please look into that. It's about he created a rat trap, and he did an experiment to show us how our conditioning works. Raga and dvesha. That is, this is good, this is bad, but still, the third stage is so. If you associate with good, and then you associate with bad, it is always bad. But so we can teach that he kind of mimicked an experiment to teach that raga and dvesha. That rat did that. The problem statement was it became abhinivesh. Abhinivesh means continuously doing that attachment, continuously doing this non-attachment, continuously thinking that this is good, this is bad. So that discrimination is there, but in the human life, we can actually discriminate what is right for me. That good and bad is okay, but is that good for me? Is that bad for me? That understanding comes only in this particular human life. So that's the importance of a human life. And Shukadeva Goswami explains to Parikshit Maharaj that in 6.1 level that real atonement means awakening knowledge. So Prabhupada also mentions in this particular purport that if one studies Vedanta, Prabhupada very clearly mentions, if one studies Vedanta but merely advances somewhat in speculative knowledge and does not understand the Supreme Lord, one remains the same mudha. There are people, especially when we do book distribution, we have seen Namatrede, I have all these books. But are we ready? Yeah, I am reading all these books. But is there a change happening? Is there a transformation happening? ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada, our spiritual master, our devotees are striving for that particular aspect of transformation. Education we give, but our intention is to transformation of heart. Not not enjoyment that okay, I have read Bhagavad Gita, I have read Bhagavatam, I have read so many things, so many scriptures I have read. I've read this Rig Veda, Puranas, and all these things. Yes, you have read, but Prabhupada writes, if that one does not understand Supreme Lord, one remains the same mudha. Bhagavad Gita also in 7:19 says, one attains real knowledge when he understands Krishna, and then after understanding Krishna, surrenders unto him. Bhunam janmanam ante jnanavam mam prapadyante. That is the important aspect. That when Srila Prabhupada has taught us that, you give the knowledge, the jiva will understand. But the next aspect is, does the jiva surrender? Because that is the next ask from us. Then Prabhupada writes, to become learned and free from material contamination, therefore, one should try to understand Krishna, for thus one is immediately liberated from all pious and impious activities and their reactions. This particular purport, when I read that, Prabhupada actually, as I said, right, it is again repetition, but Prabhupada has, in these 4-5 lines, Prabhupada actually has, summarized everything. This last line itself, Prabhupada writes, to become learned and free from material contamination. Prabhupada writes what they should do. Therefore, one should try to understand Krishna. Everybody knows Krishna is a supreme personality, but have we tried to understand Krishna? Have we tried to, understand the pastimes that Krishna has done? Whether it is as wonderful pastime as whether it is a Brahma Vimohana Leela, the Govardhan pastime, so many pastimes. Are we trying to understand Krishna? What Krishna's message is trying to give us? And then Prabhupada adds, if we understand Krishna, one is immediately liberated from what? From all pious and impious activities, all good and bad, actions we do and we accumulate, and their reactions also. So they immediately liberated from all those. So human life is basically meant for definitely for education, but in the right, like how Prabhupada, once he went to MIT, and they were showing him all, the people are showing him all this, and they were explaining, oh, this is what we do, that is what to do. Prabhupada just asked one statement. Yeah, good, I'm in MIT, but are you teaching anything about the Almighty? Prabhupada mentioned that. They had no answer, and which is definite. They don't do that. This whole system is supposed to create supposed to create all those, now this mechanical robots are everywhere. The system was trying to make humans robots only, mechanical robots only. But now robots have come. Now at least the humans should have time because the robots are doing work. People, we have heard about this AI. I was just wondering about that. AI is there, many places, Amazon and all, they're totally automated. But now, what about the people? It is an opportunity for us to grab those people and give them this knowledge, and they can at least go back to God rather, because let the robots do the work, whatever they want to do. They can feed us and give all the money, for example. Okay, maybe the robots can be utilized to raise the crop and give us food. Let them cook and give us food. We can at least spend our time in reading Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, and getting associated with devotees, and at least we can get more time. I was looking, I mean, just from a positive aspect of this whole automation, all these things kind of thinking. One, I don't know who was, one devotee was mentioning that earlier days, that is what people used to do, whether villages, morning to afternoon, something, you work in the fields, and evening, okay, Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, just spend time with the devotees. Again, go morning and do this. And now we can engage all those mechanical robots and all this to do the work for us. We can lord over them, and then we can have so much time to spend time to to read Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, and do Sankirtan. That's all, right? That's the second point about how in the human life one can be taught. Third point was how to associate with the Lord or his devotee, and because of that association, how the position changes. Yeah. Uh, Now, association with the Lord primarily happens, as I said, was Hari Charya Anuvarnanam. With this holy name, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare, through this holy name, through his devotees, and through his instructions. Now, this instructions either from the scriptures or through the devotees, the person Bhagavatas who have understood, relished, and realized and this knowledge, and from through them we get the instructions. So, three ways we can associate with the Lord: holy name, his devotees, and his instructions. Right, the three ways. Now, through the devotees, why? Because devotees act as bridge. Act as a bridge where they help us connect to the Lord. They make us. They make the Lord easily accessible for us, even for the most fallen, for that matter. We know about Jagai Madhai, the pastime that has happened. So devotees are acting as a bridge so that we can get easily accessible. We don't have to, if it's a bridge on a river, we can't. You don't have to on a railway track where the bridges are there. Right? We don't have to cross the railway tracks. We can easily, calmly cross over the bridge. So that devotees act as facilitator. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Madhya Lila chapter 28, chapter 22, text 54, very beautiful. He says, Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastra Kaya. Lavamatra sadhu sangha, sarva siddhi hoy. So what Mahaprabhu is saying, all the shastras, sarva shastra, what are they saying? Only one thing. Lavamatra sadhu sangha, sarva siddhi hoy. So the Mahaprabhu is also saying that, just this momentary association with devotees or with pure devotees, sarva siddhi hoy. That is what he's saying is the verdict of all scriptures. Now, just to explain, just to how do I say, put more emphasis on how devotees mercy we get Krishna. We all know when the Khandoprastha, where Arjuna was burning all the forest of Khandoprastha, Maya Dano, he came and begged for shelter to Arjuna. He said, I will do anything for you, but please spare me. Arjuna spared him because he was seeking, he sought shelter with Arjuna. Arjuna spared him, but he says, I don't want anything from him. I did not do anything. I did not do this to get something from you. You better go to Krishna. And Krishna, when he goes to Krishna, he says, my Lord, please protect me. Please give me a shelter. Krishna says, yes. And Mayadanu basically was an architect for all the Danavas. So Krishna knew that. So what he did was, he said, why don't you build a palace for the Pandavas? And such a beautiful palace. We all know how the beautiful palace was built in Hastinapur. So he says, go and build the palace for the Pandavas. So now what Krishna did? Krishna engaged his skills to do what? To serve the Pandavas. So that he engaged in the service of Pandavas. And because he took shelter of Krishna, and what happened through and Mayadana was very grateful, basically, to Krishna, that he could engage himself to serve the devotees. So the process is that, and again, if you want to hear about this, how this works, you can refer to 115.8. Beautifully, Prabhupada writes in that. The process is that by the grace of the devotee, the mercy of the Lord is obtained. So, and by the mercy of the Lord, a chance to the Lord to serve the Lord's devotees obtained. I just repeat that. The process is that with the grace of the devotee. So Arjuna sent him over to Krishna. So for Mayadana, he got the mercy of the Lord. What kind of a mercy he got? To serve the Lord's devotees. See how the cycle is? So that way, it's a very beautiful process that we have. So that is how we associate with devotees, because they help us to connect to Krishna. So Maya Danav's Lavamatra Sadhu Sangha, whatever he was in a distressful state, he went over to Arjuna. Arjuna pointed him, Arjuna, I don't want anything. He himself is working for Krishna. He says, I don't want anything. You go to Krishna. So the devotee pointed him to Krishna. He went over there. What did Krishna do? He again engaged him in the service of devotees only. So he got the mercy of the Lord by doing what? By serving the devotee. In that way. So, but now, so the point is this association. Again, the same topic is coming up. So there could be, now when we associate with devotee, we know that they help us to connect with Krishna. Right? But there could be two extremes also. Basically, this is to understand how do we associate with the devotees. So one is and we have to use our intelligence also over there. Now, if there are devotees there might be some devotees who are extreme, right? For them, only devotees matter. Only the Guru matters. Even Krishna doesn't matter for them. No, God doesn't matter for them. What happens is they become Mayavadis. One devotee was telling that he went to I think Rishikesh or something, that he happened to see how the Mayavadis were worshipping the worship to Guru is elaborate, but there is no Krishna, there is no God over there. They don't consider, for them devotees. So this is pretty extreme where we become Mayavadis. And the other extreme, where only Krishna, devotees have, no devotees, I don't even connect with devotees. For me, it is only Krishna, becomes religious. These are two extremes. Okay. So the normal tendency, so when we have to associate with devotees. We know that the devotees connect us to Krishna. For that matter, our spiritual master helps us to engages us in the service of Krishna. That is how a devotee is. So what it means is a normal tendency that a devotee shows us a mirror, but first the devotee has to look himself in the mirror, and then he shows the mirror. It's not that oh dekho, directly shows the mirror to the devotee that see how you are correct. It's not like that. But first the devotee has to look himself in the mirror and also show that mirror to others also. Okay, so which means the devotees show the courage also, but they're at the same time they're sensitive also. This is very important. Right? So they act as mirror and shadow us also, wherein they're always with us. Whenever the time is needed, they are with us. So I just quickly wanted to bring up three very important principles when we how to have close relationship with what kind of devotees or with devotees. How we have to consider these three principles to have close relationships with devotees. The first one is we have to always remember that our friend devotees is a servant of Krishna or is dear to Krishna. If we forget this, if you forget that whom we associate with, a devotee is a servant to Krishna or is very dear to Krishna, if you forget this, it will not help us come closer to Krishna. Even the devotee might try to do that. But if we don't have that remembrance that this devotee is very dear to Krishna, because then what happens? Our dealings with the devotees are done with that particular awe and reverence, with that particular remembrance that yes, he's also a devotee of Krishna. So that aspect is that first one. That's the first one, that we should remember that our friend or devotee is also is a servant of Krishna and is dear to Krishna. So that's the first one. Second one is to respect the devotees, even if the devotee has a has a different viewpoint than ours, we still respect that devotee. It's not that, it's basically what happens is we tend, it's a natural tendency that, we are closer to the devotees who kind of, rub our, not should not say that, but kind of agree to everything that we say. So that is good. It's like a goody goody thing. But even to make the relationship more strong, like even the devotees who have a different point, who are critics basically, who have a different viewpoint than ours, we should still keep them on a high pedestal. We should still respect them. So that's the second principle. Now these two, first and second, are the base, are the foundational principles for us to have a very close, a very healthy, and a very respectful relationship with devotee. The normal tendency is that these two aspects are very easily forgotten or overlooked, basically. And the third one is most used. The third one is we should be able to relate to the devotee. Basically, what I meant by this is we find similarities when we connect to a devotee. That is how we kind of tend to connect with devotee. Right? Oh, he also shares my same viewpoint, same kind of a thought process. So let me be more closer to him. Right? That is how we get closer, basically. So third is that we should be able to relate to the devotee. This is very important principle, but without forgetting the first two. So generally the focus on the third, but the first two are kind of overlooked. So we have to bring back the emphasis on the first two also. Okay? So, and if we try to use these three principles, we can have a very healthy spiritual relationship with the devotees, friendly relationship basically. But if not, if these three principles are not followed, it becomes a sort of a, kind of a similar, any kind of a materialistic relationship, which doesn't have a strong base. Like you might associate with one, we all know, right, how it is. We associate one devotee, okay, today he did not agree to my point, I go to something else, right? Now, this is the third point from this translation. The last point, I'll end with this. What happens with this association? If we kind of have this association, our position can be changed. Ajamila's momentary association with the holy name, just he called out the Lord's name. I was just wondering, this whole section was about calling one name of Narayana. This whole section of Ajamila has built from where he was, what he became, and what was his position at the end. Just by this one sound or the one holy name. Right? He was shifted from the jurisdiction of Yamaraja to Vishnu's protection just by chanting. Without even, for that matter, without even knowing that he is chanting the name of the Lord, he's taking. Yeah. So this is the dynamic mercy of bhakti, that even at the last moment, somehow, this was accidental for him. But as it is said, right, death is an examination, but a life is a preparation for that particular exam. So for us, we have a wonderful association. Our temple management has provided such a wonderful place, such a wonderful facility to associate. And so many programs are happening. You will not, I'm not sure some of you are involved in that particular programs that are happening. Basically, it's kind of a preaching program that is happening just to ensure that there are multiple programs that are happening. But from that program, there will be so many devotees who are inclined to do bhakti. They will be roped in and bought into a particular preaching program, and then cultivated them and taken them to the next level. So beautiful program that is happening in the temple. So we all have to take benefit of that. So we all, now I know this August assembly here, you all have been practicing bhakti for so many years, so wonderfully you have been practicing. But now it is a time that you all also been sharing. So now it is a time that we have to give it back to the society also. So I'll end with this wonderful shloka. Maybe just two more last shlokas. Parikshit Maharaj, he says in this particular shloka that what kind of life I want. He says, Punascha bhuyat bhagavatyanante rati prasangas cha tad ashrayeshu. The first one, mahatsuyamyam upyami shrishtim maitriyastu sarvatra namo dvijebhyah. So he says, to all Brahmanas, I'm offering obeisance to all, and he's praying that if I should again take my birth, punascha bhuya, punascha bhuya, if I come again, what do I want? Bhagavatyanante. I will have complete attachment to the unlimited Lord Krishna. That is the first thing he asks. What he asks? I want Bhagavatyanante, I want Rati Prasangas. Bhagavatyanante, I want attachment, complete attachment to the unlimited Lord Krishna. Second point very beautifully says, Rati Prasangas cha tad ashreshu. He's actually defining what a devotee is. He's saying, I want to associate with those devotees who have taken shelter of you. So that's the second thing he asks. And then third thing, very important, he asks, I want to be friendly. I have to have friendly relationships with all living beings. Maitri astu sarvatra namo dvijebhyaha. So this is a wonderful shloka that Parikshit Maharaj, who did not bother about eating, drinking, or sleeping, or anything. He just was hearing Krishna Katha, pure Krishna Katha from Shukadeva Goswami. He's praying that if in case I am born again, what I want to have complete attachment to the lotus feet of the Lord. Second is, I want to associate with devotees who have taken shelter of the Lord. And third, I want to be friendly with all living beings. And lastly, we all recite these prayers every time. Yeah, it is very important that we always remember this. Srimad Bhagavatam 1:18, it says, Nashta prayasha vatrishu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke. What happens? Bhaktir bhavati naishtaki. And Prabhupada beautifully translates this. He writes, here is the remedy for eliminating all inauspicious things within the heart which are considered to be obstacles in the path of self-realization. And what is the remedy? He says, the remedy is the association of the Bhagavatas. Okay. And then he further explains there are two Bhagavatas. That is the book Bhagavata and the devotee Bhagavata. Now he goes and glorifies both of them. He says, both the Bhagavatas are competent remedies. See how beautiful it is. Prabhupada is writing. Both the Bhagavatas are competent remedies, and both of them, or either of them, can be good enough to eliminate the obstacles. Which obstacles? Obstacles in the path of our self-realization. He says both of them, or both of them together, or either of them can be good enough to eliminate the obstacles. A devotee Bhagavata, he says, is as good as the book Bhagavata, because the devotee Bhagavata leads his life in terms of the book Bhagavata. And the book Bhagavata is full of information of the personality of Godhead and his pure devotees. See how it is, how it's in a circle, right? And he says, I'll just read that again. A devotee Bhagavata is as good as the book Bhagavata because the devotee Bhagavata leads his life in terms of the book Bhagavata, and the book Bhagavata is full of information about the personality of Godhead and his pure devotees who are also Bhagavatas. So then he writes, Bhagavata, book and person are identical. So association will definitely lead to transformation and a change of destination also. So in summary, this shloka itself is a summary basically. So the Yamadutas are saying that the jivas are entrapped in this material world due to their association with the trigunas, the material modes. But in this human form, they can still have an opportunity to, elevate themselves because they can be taught to associate with the Lord and his devotees. And what happens? By that association only, viliyate, his entire position can be transformed. Anantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. I really want to thank Sankarshan Priya Prabhu that he gave me this. I should have done first only, but
Krishna Balaji Prabhu.
Haribo. So,
sorry, Kabir Prabhu. Kabir Das Prabhu, please go ahead, Prabhu.
Oh, sorry. Thanks, Balaji Prabhu. Thanks for wonderful lecture and beautiful references and final good closing. Marvelous closing, Prabhu. Super. Dandavat Pranam, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. I actually wanted to thank His Grace Sankarshan Priya Prabhu, that because of him, like we get this opportunity to purify ourselves by reading about Srimad Bhagavatam and the wonderful devotees to purify ourselves and glorify them.
Absolutely, Prabhu. Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Prabhu, how Krishna has selected people, he makes them do, like in the Kandava Dahana, Krishna makes him, he knows the talent of him and he makes him to construct. Like same thing Prabhupada also was doing, no Prabhu. He had identified people, like how Jadurani was asked to do the painting and all that.
Yes. He knew, even Tamal Krishna Goswami, he knew he will do wonderful in whatever he does. So he was that, even though he was part of that bus Sankirtan party. And then when it was so going nicely, he said, now you go to China and preach over there. He knew he was one of the best. Yes.
And that's what they say, no, Prabhu, about his death. Prabhupada was gone and he wanted something when he said Tamal. And he just left the body, they say. So, wonderful people there. Dandavat Pranam Prabhu, wonderful lecture. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranams. Thanks for the wonderful class. Prabhu, you were telling 5 points regarding how we should consider devotees, no Prabhu? Can you
3 points, sir. Yes, Madhuri. 3 principles were there, 3 essential principles. One was, we should always remember that our friend devotee who we are connected to, who are trying to build a relationship, is a servant of Krishna. We never forget that aspect. Or he is very dear to Krishna. That is the one thing we should never forget. And that is how it will help us build that a very nice spiritual relationship. That was the first point. Second point was, even if the devotee who we are creating a relationship or a friendship with, he might have a different viewpoint than yours, we should still respect that particular devotee. And third one is, we should be able to relate to that devotee. So these are the 3 principles that we can consider when we are trying to build a relationship with any devotee.
What is this relate to the devotee, Prabhu?
Relate is basically, see what happens, Madhuri, when we are trying to, when we talk to devotee, we try to find, that is natural tendency of trying to find similarities. Relate means I'm able to relate because he is able to, chime up or repeat what, understand my situation basically. So when the other devotee is able to understand our situation, is able to relate basically to my position. That's how we get closer. Otherwise, if somebody says, oh, okay, fine. You go to a person and you explain your situation and that person doesn't understand. That person is not able to relate itself to your position, basically. That's all.
Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Hare
Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranams. Thanks for the beautiful insights, Prabhu. Lot of practical. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna, Dandavat.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. We can end, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Sri Balaji Prabhu. Thank you for very nice class, Prabhuji. Again, apologies for starting a little late.
Not a problem at all.
Slipped out of my mind. So sorry, Prabhu. We will end today's session with Vaishnava Pranam.
Vansha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya vacha padidhanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo anantakoti vaishnavrinda ki jai. Vaishnava Thakur Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
That was beneficial for us, Prabhu, today. Because we had to finish our Bhagavatam class and come, it was delayed. So, benefited. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Dandavat Pranam, Hare Krishna.
Dandavat Pranam.